U.S. nationwide has declined dramatically over the past, especially since about 2000. And we have just about 9 million jobs nationwide. North Carolina roughly mirrors this. It's about a 60% participation rate, and you have 300,000 open jobs here. And I'm sure you've heard from employers, it is very hard to find good employees. Now, at the same time this is happening, we have seen a dramatic increase in SNAP enrollment, in safety net enrollment. So you can see here from 1997 till now, it increased dramatically throughout COVID. It's still higher than it was before COVID. And the same, I think you have about 1.4 million people here in North Carolina on food assistance. And you have about 2.5 million people here in North Carolina who are on Medicaid assistance. All this makes a lot of sense. Food is expensive, healthcare is expensive. Obviously, people who are in low-income families who need assistance are going to rely on these benefits. And often it takes them out of the workforce. So I'll go quickly through this slide. Why does work matter? It obviously matters to people's bottom line. Incomes increase. Yes, we can see that economically. But when people work, when people don't work, their physical health declines, their psychological well-being declines. But when they move from welfare to work, we see financial strain declines, food insecurity drops, we see their physical, emotional, and psychological health improves, and we even see better health and educational outcomes for their children. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here. I think we all know why work matters. We've seen it in the lives of people around us. So, what should states do? I'm going to tell you that there's a big problem. There's a separation between our public assistance programs, food assistance, that's SNAP, Medicaid, TANF. Our assistance programs are dramatically separate in our states from our workforce programs. When someone is coming in the door and they're meeting with a caseworker looking for assistance, there's rarely a question, I should say, of how do we connect you back to work? How do we get you that first job or that second pay raise that helps you move beyond assistance into flourishing? There was one state, Utah, that had 30 years ago tackled this problem and solved it. So they started in 1992. They started with an audit and they realized there was dramatic duplication on a state level. They found 23 different programs in 6 agencies that are all meant to serve the same family. The single mom that we've heard about a lot today, who has 1 or 2 kids. She's going to 6 different agencies, depending on the state, looking for the same assistance, looking for whether it's public assistance or workforce assistance. She doesn't have time to do that, and we're forcing a burden on her that she doesn't need to undertake. In 1994, Governor Leavitt led the way. He created a task force, and they identified up to 36 programs that are all serving the same family in need. And then they said, this doesn't make any sense. Let's move it all into one department with one IT system, with one case manager to serve the same family. That launched in 1997. This is where it gets a little bit complicated, so I'll go through this quickly-ish. So they had something in the workforce system called single state designation. That means they don't have 24 local workforce development areas, they have 1. And when there is a crisis in the state, or there's a new employer that moved into the state and they need training for that particular situation, the governor can just move funds around as needed. He doesn't have to go to each one of the local, the one-stop centers of the local development areas to ask permission to move funds around. So you may be surprised to learn that people don't like to give up money. 2, they have a simple service delivery. They have one stop in reality on the ground there. Every Utah customer accesses services through one location, and they work with a single team of employment specialists. When you come in for SNAP, you're going to get employment help. When you come in for Medicaid, you're going to get employment help. It's a system where you're always directed towards flourishing. And I always like to bring up technology because that's very expensive. They have one IT system. They don't have a workforce development system, and then a Medicaid system, and then a SNAP system. That also means that the individual, the single mom, isn't filling out the same 24-page application 3 times. And finally, They have mastered financial integration. As you know, the federal rules around these programs are extremely stringent, and the administrative matches vary from program to program. So in Medicaid, you might have 90-10 match from the federal side. On SNAP, you might have a 50-50 administrative match. On TANF, you might have a maintenance of effort requirement. They don't put that on the caseworker to figure out how they're spending it on. The department has integrated, so all of that is behind the scenes. The caseworker is there to serve the family, not to meet the program requirements. So did it work? Yes, Utah has had incredible outcomes. Utah is always pretty good, and this is a question I get all the time. Isn't Utah just special? They have really strong families and strong employment. That is all true. So even before they reorganized, their employment to population ratio was about 4% above the national average. But after they reorganized, it's now 7.3% above the national average. And when COVID hit, they recovered jobs faster than any other state, because when you came in for UI, you were automatically connected to their job system. So it works. Utah is special, but when you're a special state with strong families, maybe this is how you reorganize your public assistance and your workforce programs. So why can't other states do this? This is a question I get a lot. Right after they launched the Department of Workforce Services in 1997, Congress, doing a great job, passed the Workforce Investment Act, WIA. And they put even more rules around the workforce development dollars. Just to put that in context of workforce development dollars, SNAP E&T is about $100 million nationwide. WIOA, for the same population, is about $3 billion. It's just a lot more money. So they put in a lot more stringent rules. They kind of locked down your regional areas. They grandfathered Utah out. Utah is able to do their own system. And they cannot waive those requirements. So you're kind of stuck in the workforce system that you have now. That's bad news. It's not the end of the story, though. A lot of states are now calling for reform. So in their last legislative session, Texas passed a task force, like Utah's, to consolidate their workforce development and their human services. They also passed a kind of cheeky resolution calling on Congress to amend the federal law. Georgia passed a task force bill out of their House committee this legislative session. Just yesterday, Louisiana's new governor signed an executive order to create a task force in their state to do the same work. Maine tried to do this in 2017. They applied for a waiver from the Department of Labor, and they were denied by the Trump administration. I would like to leave you with a little bit of hope here. A task force is the first step. We do need congressional action. A one-door option that would create a federal option for this was included in the House-passed committee legislation a couple months ago, and it could be considered on the House floor in the coming months. And it has been, a one-door option has been introduced by Representative Burgess Owens of Utah and Mitt Romney, also of Utah. This version would allow 8 states to pursue this. So I want to leave you with, oh wow, this is very small. I would like to leave you with one thing of like, how could you change? If you were to set up a task force saying, we really do think that we should streamline, we should combine public assistance with workforce services, what could it look like? This is a chart that has been created for Georgia. On the left, you see what Georgia currently has. This is what every single mother with a couple kids who's earning 20 grand a year, this is what she experiences. This is why she doesn't know when she's going to hit a benefit cliff, because the rules don't make sense. And this is what Georgia could do with their task force, even if Congress doesn't do too much. You can reorganize so it is simple, so the rules are understandable. It is very small, so I won't go too much into it. And I would like to leave you with, in every state, a one-door model will be unique because the needs of the citizens are unique. You are county-based, that is not the end of the world. I'm also on the Virginia Board of Social Services. We are also county-based. I would like to point out that while you have 100 counties, you have 24 local workforce boards. And so that is obviously going to create an area of separation between public assistance and and those who need workforce services. And that is all I have for you today.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Any questions?